Is Portland, Oregon in a doom loop? What even is a doom loop? Today we're going to review 2025 State of the Economy in Portland, Oregon. We're going to go over the repercussions, and we're also going to go over some of the silver linings and opportunities presented. So if you're thinking of moving to our little corner of the Pacific Northwest, you're not going to want to miss this video. What even is a doom loop? Because this word is just getting thrown out there, and it's not the first time a city's been connected to this phrase. To put it in basic English, a doom loop is where a city gets caught in a rough cycle of those with money leaving the city due to livability, which then plunders the tax revenue, taxes increase, which make more people leave, and it creates this self-eating snake where those moving out accelerate the loss in tax revenue and make the livability of the city worse and worse. So then who the hell am I? I'm Tim Jackson. I'm an Oregon and Washington real estate agent. I've lived in the area for over 20 years, so I've got skin in the game when it comes to talking about the hard facts brought up in this report that we're gonna struggle through in today's video. But why would a real estate agent be talking about a negative occurrence in the city? Well, the reality is that this report is perception, and perception is not always reality. While some of these facts are hard to dispute, I think it really takes a keen eye to understand and analyze them and then actually apply them to what's going on in Portland, Oregon. And I'm also just gonna tell you the blunt truth. I'm not here to paint a picture of what Portland is not. If you're thinking of moving to Portland, yes, there are big city problems, and you should probably know that before you move up here and before you plant roots and buy a home. Now, the report is mostly talking about Multnomah County, but it also highlights a lot of parts about Clackamas County, Clark County up in Washington, and Washington County just west of Portland. This report was done by economists who are looking at facts and figures, and some of these are lagging indicators. A gut feeling tells me that this video is gonna get a decent amount of views, and I feel like a lot of people that are showing up to watch this video are just hoping for the downfall of Portland. If you're one of those people that is sitting from the sidelines just hoping for our city to fail, I would ask you to watch the video in full and actually try to engage with an open mind. But if you end this video saying Portland and its surrounding suburbs are not the place for me, please don't subscribe, please dislike the video. I'm not looking for this channel and this video to attract negative press or to give a poor perception of Portland just for the sake of seeing it fall. I am gonna give you the honest, true facts about what it's like living in Portland, what my experience has been, and why I ultimately left from Multnomah County to Clackamas County. Now, if you are looking to either relocate, you're thinking of relocating, you live here and you love the city, or really any demographic that fits a fairly positive or just wants to be here to vibe, then shoot a comment down below and do subscribe and stay along for the journey. But yeah, again, if you're that last bracket of just here to shit on the city, please don't subscribe and stay away from the channel. Thank you. Oh, but one more thing, I should clarify that Vancouver, Washington is its own city, and some people up there definitely don't vibe with Portland, so you can definitely stick around if you're a Vancouver, Washington fan, but you're not a Portland, Oregon fan. I totally get it. No hard feelings, and definitely subscribe if that's you. Let's get going up to the Portland City Grill at the top of the Big Pink and talk over some numbers. It's like being in an airplane up here, but let's actually pour over the data in this 2025 Portland Economic State of Economy. So this is the full report here. This is the 2025 State of the Economy. It was done by a local economist. And keep in mind that this is an opinion. There are facts stated within this report, but they are not all completely fact-based. Some of them are just polls based on people's opinions. So as you can see, Portland lost about 5,000 people in 2023. Shows you it's also lagging. This isn't 2024, this isn't 2025, it's 2 years ago. But there has been job loss, and there has definitely been a significant trend of people with money, the big taxpayers, moving to outlying counties or even out of state. And this last statistic, which has really been blowing up, and I think it's been taken out of proportion, is that Portland, while in 2017 ranked amongst the highest on the real estate attractiveness ranking, it's now the second to last out of the 81 cities that were looked at. It ranked 80th, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. I mean, stay tuned because it's not as that number might suggest. So let's now look at the population change per county. As I said earlier in the video, Clackamas County is just south of us. Clark County is north in Washington. To confuse you a little bit, Washington County is west of Multnomah. And then obviously Multnomah County is Portland proper, where we are right now. Multnomah is hemorrhaging when it comes to domestic migration. It'll be interesting to see what the 2024 numbers say. Quite frankly, I don't know why a 2025 market report is using 2023 numbers. It would make a lot more sense if they had the 2024 data available to us. But you can see of all the counties, Clackamas is kind of treading water. Multnomah is losing significant people to domestic migration. Clark County is the winner of all of this. A lot of people are moving up to Vancouver, and if you follow along with my channel, you'll know that people are moving to Vancouver for a reason. There's people that live in the Portland area that know the inside secrets. There's also people that are watching my videos, maybe you're subscribed. You'll know that I've lived in both Vancouver and Portland, and there are definitely pros to both, but there's huge reasons people are going to Vancouver. It's the tax benefits. It's really the quality of life for what you pay for. You know, that's what everybody's looking at. How much do I have to pay to get a really good quality of life? And Vancouver wins on a lot of those metrics. You can also see that employment growth has kind of stagnated. One of the most damning things about this report is that normally Portland follows the national trend in a way that when the national trend is doing well, Portland will actually exceed it. And then when the economy is shrinking nationwide, Multnomah County or Portland will do far worse. But usually, and every single time after a national downturn, Portland has come back strong. But what this report highlights and finds out is that actually Portland has not come back this last downturn. We have taken a lot longer, and we actually are still kind of stagnant and sitting flat. So the report is not necessarily saying we're in a doom loop, but it's saying that we might be on the cusp of one. Based on different counties, the percent of annual employment change, Multnomah County is at 97%, while as Clark County up in Vancouver has screamed at an 114% growth. And I think this is the part of the report that you definitely want to pay attention to the most. This is the average income of people moving in or out of the metro counties. You've got Clackamas County, where the average person staying makes a decent chunk of change. The average person moving in is, you know, right in the middle, and then those moving out are on the lower income. You'll also see in Clark County up in Vancouver, the same thing is true. Those staying are making a significant amount of money, which helps the local government thrive and stay alive, because it shows that people are doing well, there's growth going on, and therefore it can be given back to the community. Those moving in are making a significant amount, and those moving out are making less than those staying and moving in. But you'll see that in Multnomah County, those moving out are making the most. In Portland specifically, those who are making the money are deciding that the livability for what they pay for is not worth it. And those that are staying are right behind them, and those moving in are making, for the first time in quite a while, this report started to tilt in this trend. Those moving in are not making a significant amount, especially considering that Portland isn't necessarily a cheap place to live, and this is only going to burden the already burdened system that Portland's created. Washington County actually follows Multnomah County, but just at a slightly higher pace. Now I'm going to enjoy the view and get a bite of food. We're going to go to my office to review the real estate side of this report, and then get into the residential side of it. By the way, if you're thinking of moving up here to Portland, Oregon, or any of its suburbs, then reach down right here to start the conversation. I can take a phone call or a text. I can also do a consultation over Zoom, or you can shoot me an email right here as well to give me an understanding of what you're hoping to accomplish when you move up here. I'm happy to help guide you through it. Now that we're in my office, let's get to the real estate side of this economic report. You can see that the attractiveness of Portland's real estate market topped out in 2017, where it was the top 96% of all cities from a real estate investor appeal. And you can see that we slowly declined, and in 2025, we are in the bottom 1% of real estate attractiveness. Let me clarify that this ranking doesn't look at residential real estate as much. This is really looking at outside money and outside investors, and as the report highlights, it was a survey amongst real estate sector leaders to measure the attractiveness, so it is kind of a subjective measurement. You can see that it's measuring multifamily housing, it's measuring apartment construction, and then it also takes into consideration the affordability by neighborhood. You can see that Inner Vancouver and East Side Portland are still relatively affordable compared to the outer edges of the Portland and Vancouver area being a lot hotter and having a lot more land, generally speaking. Somebody I shared this image with said it looked kind of like a butterfly. But if you're looking at a residential home in Portland, that is very much controlled by supply and demand. Residential real estate is expected to continue to grow, and it is not expected to suddenly get a whole lot more affordable. I'm going to emphasize that this report was strictly focusing on outside money and outside investors and their view of whether or not it would be good to invest in real estate that they weren't occupying. Stay tuned to the end of the video because this is going to be part of the silver lining to this entire report. Now, let's get into peer regions, because I think it's very important that we weigh ourselves against how other cities are doing. I mean, COVID and the economic downturn didn't just affect Portland. Multiple cities have been hampered by this, and these are based on similar economic scale, similar population, and then Seattle was used because it's very similar regional-wise. You can see that employment-wise, Portland is actually kind of in the middle. It's doing better than Minneapolis and Milwaukee, but not quite as good as Denver or Sacramento. And I think this is important to note because while Sacramento has only continued to go down, Portland has actually shown a blip up in net population change. So there is a chance that Portland just hit rock bottom and we're going to see a resurgence in the coming years. And you can see that Portland, from a business growth standpoint, is outpacing Milwaukee and Sacramento. And while it is behind, obviously, Seattle, Denver, and Minneapolis, Portland is again in the middle of the pack when it comes to economic growth. Now, one of the key takeaways and why it all matters is that this economic forecast has shown that Portland is now competing for growth. There's other cities that people are looking at, and Portland isn't just going to get a free ticket to have their growth button hit. Our local leaders are really going to have to take a hard look at this report and say what is needed in order to bring Portland through the next decade without seeing a significant population loss. The report also highlights that people are still moving here in droves. It's the people that got worn out, and in my personal subjective opinion, it's the people that experienced the worst of Portland that are now going off to other counties or are going to greener pastures. And from the real estate side of things, I've always said that Portland is going to end up like a medium rare steak, in that the meat on the inside is going to be a lot colder than the meat on the outside. And you've seen that happen even before COVID, where the inner core of Portland was just cooling down, condos weren't selling for quite as much, and activity was slightly slowing down. And you could see the suburbs were taking off. Suburbs like Vancouver, Washington, Ridgefield, Oregon City, Camas, Washington, they're all creating these waterfronts and their own unique downtown landscape that's going to set it apart and make it no longer dependent on the bustle of Portland proper. I mean, you don't need to look too far for examples on cities that died on the inside but have a thriving suburb. In Detroit, where the auto industry collapsed and left a fairly large wake, it's one of the best examples of a city that has gone through a real-life doom loop. But if you go just 20 minutes north to Bloomfield Hills, you'll see average price homes reaching $1 million, whereas the average home price in Detroit, Michigan isn't even $100,000. And a consequence of the doom loop within Detroit, Michigan itself, in that property taxes in Detroit, Michigan are some of the highest in the nation. Now, I don't necessarily think that Portland proper is going to go through a doom loop. The study even points out that a lot of locals see positive changes because we have the best pulse of what's going on, whereas it's the outsiders that are saying the doom loop is imminent. I think the city does need to take these signs with great care, and I definitely do see how the doom loop is going to continue unfolding if we don't actually turn the ship around. But the whole point with that Detroit, Michigan comparison isn't to necessarily say Portland is going in the way of Detroit, but it's to say that even if it does, our suburbs can outlast whatever punches come our way. So that gets us to the silver lining of this entire report, is that it does show that there's major growth in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. There's people that are still moving here in numbers, and even people that are moving from outside the city are deciding to locate to Vancouver, Washington. But even those who are staying in Portland proper and are locating here, the silver lining in this report is that you are not going to be competing with outside investors like BlackRock, who are coming in and purchasing homes on a large scale in other major cities. So while Portland has remained the cheapest major West Coast city, in part thanks to this report and in part thanks to our poor PR, if you are making the move up here, you might be getting in at the bottom of that trend as the ship is starting to get turned around. And the best news yet is that with outside investors scared off since 2017, you'll be able to get a home where you're not competing with those outside investors, whereas I can't say the same for other major cities. I mean, as the recent airport project showed you, which I've done a video on, it shows you that Portland is still putting money into making us a major art and cultural hub. Just being at the Portland City Grill today in blue sky weather really made me appreciate that I live in such a beautiful city with access to greenery just a stone throw away. So what does that mean for you if you're thinking of relocating here? Is Portland actually in a doom loop? And how should that affect you going about purchasing a home or planning routes in our city? Well, the one thing I would say is that if you're moving to Portland proper, have a conversation with me about how to get in at the right price for you. The one trend I'm very much noticing is that Portland, Oregon is still having a lot of single people or people that are career focused or have dogs. The city is still a great option for them. And another trend I'm noticing is that Clackamas County, Clark County, and Washington County have been very hot options for people that are retiring, or maybe they're coming with a family, or they have safety at the tippity top of their mind. But generally speaking, I've lived in Portland, Oregon, even through the worst of it, and I can tell you that it's not all as bad as the headlines make it sound. And I can say that because I lived in one of the worst neighborhoods during one of the worst times. And while yes, there are a couple things to write home about, Portland has remained the vibrant and fun city throughout all of this bad PR press. And I honestly think that this big dip that we're taking that is lagging the national economy is going to come back a lot stronger than we ever have before. Now, it takes a ton of optimism to say that, and I'm definitely seeing things worth mourning and worth lamenting over. But just like a best friend who's going through a bad time, I am there for Portland, and I'm also going to call Portland on its bullshit when I see it pulled up in a report. And yeah, a lot of these statistics are not great, and I think it really highlights how big of an impact downtown Portland specifically is going to see in the next 5 to 10 years. Downtown Portland is mostly commercial real estate. Leases are remaining vacant down there. And so you're going to see a 5 to 10 year cycle before downtown Portland can see the revival that they're hoping for. And I do think the doom loop has already began in downtown Portland proper. But just like that steak, I only expect the outsides to get hotter, and the closer you are on the inside might get a little bit colder. But that is a very big generalization, and if you're in a hot spot like inner southeast Portland, it's going to be a lot different. My main advice would be maybe don't buy a condo in downtown Portland unless you've got a very specific reason to be there, and just reach down below. Let's have a phone conversation, call or text to see if Vancouver, Washington is better for you, if Portland is, or maybe one of the suburbs. I've lived in all three of those options for an extensive period of time, and I've got a dog in the fight, and I actually care about where the city's going. So if you're thinking of relocating here, then definitely reach down to this number, or you can schedule a consultation on Zoom. I would love to chat with you online. I've got a lot of people reaching out, moving from out of state or even within the city, who would love to come up with a plan of how they're going to get from point A to point Z. And while buying a home might be part of that plan, there's also a lot of things to think about, such as local schools, walkability, where you're going to take the dog to the park, to where you're going to spend your date nights. I'm happy to go over the entire plan with you, and I'm looking forward to chatting. Thanks for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe, watch this video next, and I'll see you next week.